The wind howled like a banshee outside the crooked cottage, rattling the windows and sending shivers down the old woman's spine. Inside, by the flickering light of a dying candle, she swept the dusty floor with practiced efficiency. Her keen eyes caught a glint of silver beneath the bed alone, misshapen sixpence. A cackle, more akin to a crow's harsh cry, escaped her lips. Tonight, she wouldn't be gnawing on stale bread and watery soup. Tonight, there'd be meat. Clutching the sixpence like a talisman, she wrapped herself in a tattered shawl and ventured out into the gathering storm. The moon, a sliver of bone in the inky sky, offered scant illumination. The wind whipped at her skirts, icy fingers clawing at her exposed skin. By the time she reached the bustling market square, a chilling premonition had settled in her gut. With the sixpence clutched in her palm, she bartered fiercely, emerging from the throng with a squealing pig nestled under her arm. It was a plump little fellow, with eyes as black and mischievous as polished coal. Relief momentarily washed over her, quickly replaced by a surge of urgency as she spied the gnarled wooden stile that marked the path home. The pig, however, had other plans. It balked at the stile, digging its trotters stubbornly into the muddy ground. Panic, cold and clammy, slithered down her spine. The wind howled like a tormented soul, and the skeletal branches of the nearby trees clawed at the darkening sky. This wasn't just a storm, it felt like a malevolent entity conspiring against her. "Dog," she croaked, her voice hoarse with fear. A mangy canine with fur the colour of dried blood skulked by. "Dog," she pleaded, desperation lacing her voice, "bite this stubborn pig. I must reach home before the night devours me whole." The dog, however, gave her a disdainful sniff and slunk away into the growing darkness. Tears welled in her eyes, blurring the path ahead. Despair, a heavy cloak, threatened to suffocate her. But then, a flicker of orange caught her eye in the distance, a fire, a beacon in the encroaching night. With renewed hope, she stumbled towards it, the protesting pig a dead weight in her arms. Reaching the fire, she found a solitary figure huddled beside it, its face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. "Fire! Fire!" she rasped, her voice cracking. "Burn this useless pig. I must get home before the shadows swallow me whole." The figure remained silent, the firelight casting grotesque shadows that danced like mocking phantoms on the surrounding trees. The flames themselves seemed to flicker with a malevolent intelligence, offering no warmth, no comfort. Disappointment turned to chilling dread as she moved on. Beyond the fire lay a stagnant pool of water reflecting the dying embers. A sliver of hope, thin as a spider's thread, remained. Water. Water. She croaked, her throat parched with fear. "Quench the fire. I cannot spend the night battling the elements." The water remained still, a silent mirror reflecting the terror that gnawed at her soul. The figure by the fire, now revealed to be a wizened old man, chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling in a crypt. "The fire won't be quenched, old woman," he rasped, his voice like gravel scraping against stone. Not until the chain of events unfolds his words, cryptic and unsettling, sent a fresh wave of fear coursing through her veins. The world tilted on its axis. She pressed onward, driven by a primal urge to survive. A hulking silhouette in the distance resolved itself into a massive ox, standing beside a stream that fed the stagnant pool. "Ox, ox," she bellowed, her voice ragged. "Drink the water. The fire needs quenching before the night consumes me." The ox, its bovine eyes blank and uncaring, continued to graze impassively. A butcher, his face obscured by the gloom, stood beside the ox, sharpening his cleaver with a terrifying rasp. "Butcher, butcher," she screamed, her voice raw. "Kill the ox. The water needs quenching before the night claims me." The butcher's lips curled into a cruel smile, but he made no move towards the ox. A rope, thick and ominous, coiled around the butcher's waist. "Rope. Rope," she shrieked, her voice a threadbare whisper. "Hang the butcher. The ox must die before the night extinguishes my life." The rope remained inert, a silent harbinger of doom. From the darkness emerged a flash of beady eyes and twitching whiskers, a rat. It gnawed at the rope with relentless focus. A spark of defiance flickered in the old woman's chest. If the night wouldn't relent, she wouldn't either. Rat. Rat, she roared, her voice surprisingly strong despite her exhaustion. Let go of the rope. I will not surrender to this endless night, but the rat, consumed by its own purpose, continued its relentless gnawing. With a final, desperate plea, she turned to the last remaining creature, a sleek black cat perched atop a crumbling tombstone. Its emerald eyes gleamed with an unnerving intelligence in the moonlight. Cat. Cat, she rasped, her voice hoarse but unwavering. Kill the rat. The rope must hold. I will not be vanquished by the night. The cat, its gaze fixed on her, flicked its tail languidly. Milk, old woman, it purred, its voice a silky caress that sent shivers down her spine despite the biting wind. Fetch me a saucer of milk, and perhaps I'll consider your request. Exhaustion gnawed at her, but the will to survive burned brighter. With a final burst of strength, she stumbled towards a distant, dilapidated farmhouse, a faint light flickering in one of the windows. The storm raged on, the wind howling a mournful dirge that seemed to mock her struggle. But the old woman, fueled by a primal urge to see the dawn, pressed on, the weight of the night and the fate of the entire chain of events hanging heavy on her frail shoulders. She hammered on the creaky farmhouse door, its weathered surface etched with strange symbols. A moment of tense silence followed, then the creak of hinges and a sliver of light spilled out. A wizened old woman, her face a map of wrinkles, peered out suspiciously. Milk, kind woman, the old woman gasped, her voice ragged. My cat. He demands milk. The farmhouse woman's eyes narrowed, but after a long, considering look, she stepped aside. Come in then, traveller, she rasped, ushering the weary woman inside. The warmth of the flickering hearth seeped into the old woman's bones as she explained her predicament, the firelight dancing in the farmhouse woman's eyes. A knowing smile played on her lips. The night weaves a tangled web, doesn't it? She murmured, placing a steaming saucer of milk on the table. But sometimes a little kindness can unravel even the most stubborn knots. The old woman drank deeply, the warmth spreading through her chilled body. With a renewed sense of purpose, she clutched the saucer and ventured back into the storm, the fate of the night resting on the delicate balance of a feline whim.